Here's what we found. Okay, so we have 3 columns here. We asked them how often they would go if we didn't give you a coupon at all, and there were certain weeks for which we didn't give them a coupon, and so we have a completely unincentivized prediction of just how much these people actually want to go to the gym when there's no coupon on the table. And then we have their unincentivized predictions, how often do you think you would go if you did have this coupon, but we're not actually asking you to put money on the line. And then the coupon value, which is an incentivized prediction, where you're actually going to lose money if your prediction is wrong, right? And these people were pretty optimistic about their attendance. These were all people who were selected on the basis of not going to the gym at all, right? So these people are basically saying, I want to get from 0 to 60 in 3.8 seconds. I'm going to go 4 times a week, or even if there's no money on the line, I still think I'm going to go once and a half. I don't go at all, but just because you said it might be a nice idea, I'm going to go 1.5 times per week on average. And in fact, their predictions are wrong by a lot, 2 or 3 times off, by a factor of 2 or 3 times. Okay, the standard error here in each case is about 1/10 of the effect size. So this is a t-value of about 10. The 95% confidence interval kicks in at around t = 2, so we were 5 times beyond that in terms of statistical significance. These people are completely unable to predict their response to incentives or even to non-incentives at the gym. We think that suggests that these people are naive beta delta discounters. Okay. I don't know if that constitutes a proof or not, but I feel like we tend to think in terms of converging on the truth. So you have lots of different. You look at a question from lots of different angles. If you get the same suggestive results, no matter what angle you look at it, it's like, oh yeah, this thing is starting to look like a duck. We've tested its quack. We've tested how it walks. Yeah. So Pal's question is, what about people who do have prior experience, so they actually would have some better knowledge about their future self-control? We don't have good data on that. There were a few people who slipped into our experiment who lied in our screening stage in order to because it was actually people made a lot of money in this experiment compared to other experiments. So, but we don't have enough of them to be able to say anything interesting about that. And it's an interesting question. We're at the moment we're trying to get a grant to rerun this experiment with a non-student subject pool, which will be sort of a much wider range of experience in the gym, life experience, ages, health status, etc. So that's something we can definitely look at. Okay, so there you go. That seems to suggest that what's going on in this very important domain of public health is that people recognize that going to the gym would be a good idea, but are not able to actually implement that, and don't foresee that they won't be able to implement it, okay? Which means that they're not able to, if that's the case, it means that they're not letting them, just taking a laissez-faire approach. It's not just that it's going to cost society a bunch of money because they're going to have heart attacks and go to the emergency room and we're all going to have to pay for it. They're not even able to maximize their own preferences, okay? So this idea of consumer sovereignty, that we should just let consumers maximize their own utility functions, starts to be a little bit under question. It's not so obvious that the social welfare maximizing public policy in situations like this is to just let people do whatever they want to do. Now, let me just say, we obviously as a society need to be extremely cautious about telling people what to do. Okay? But it starts to call the laissez-faire conclusion a little bit into question. Oh, well, and indeed, huge, Medicaid programs, even Medicare, the National Institutes for Health, big employers are all now interested in the idea of paying people to go to the gym because they're naive beta delta discounts. So this is not just a bunch of Berkeley behavioral economists saying maybe this would be a good idea. This is lots and lots and lots of your taxpayer dollars are currently being spent on looking into doing this. Okay, let's talk about something else. The other reason why this country is currently flirting with bankruptcy. Negative externalities attendant upon the decision of whether or not to save for your retirement or incur so much personal debt as to go bankrupt. Okay. Whoops. These data are a little bit outdated. I apologize for that. So going back to 1998 and looking at high school educated households, 67.8% of them had credit card debt, which means not just so credit card debt means that they're not paying it off every month, right? So if you borrow money for less than 30 days on a credit card, you don't get charged a finance charge and you pay it off, and that's just a convenience to you. So this means carrying a balance beyond 30 days. So 2/3 of American households were carrying a balance on their credit card, and the average debt for all households, including the 1/3 that weren't, so taking the average over all households, was 11.7% of their annual income, which means that the average for those who were carrying a balance is higher than that. So that's big, right? That's a lot of debt to be carrying around. I don't know how far into that process any of you are. It's shocking how quickly you can get yourself stuck down in the bottom of that hole. At the same time, the average household with a head aged 50 to 59, which means beginning to approach retirement, had illiquid assets, meaning assets you can't just sell instantly and use as cash, worth 2.6 times their annual income. So these are people who have, for whatever reason, seen fit over the course of their lifetime to stash away fairly significant sums of money for their retirement in financial instruments that make it at least slightly difficult for them to withdraw. So I think this includes, this is not just 401ks and IRAs where you put the money in and you get a huge penalty for taking it out before you retire. This includes just stocks that it takes a while to sell them. So it's not all stuff where there's a strong sort of dimension of commitment savings to it. So for some reason, there's this big chunk of our fellow Americans who are simultaneously saving for their retirement and taking out credit card loans, in both cases at a high fraction of their income. And the point, of course, is that the APR on this money is a lot higher than the APR on this money. Right? So you shouldn't be doing that. That's silly. You should put less money into your retirement and not taking a loan on a credit card. That's just a dumb thing to do. Really bad. So why are they doing that? Well, the first fact seems to be consistent with short-run impatience, while the second one seems to be consistent with long-run patience, or at least some kind of sophistication about your future short-run impatience. Okay? Exactly as in the hyperbolic discounting model of sophistication. This is hard to get at in terms of proving whether or not that's really what's going on, right? It seems like what we'd like to say with the beta delta model is people are beta delta discounters, which we know because they're human, and probably sophisticated. And so probably what's going on is knowing that they're going to have a hard time over the course of their life saving for retirement instead of just taking the money right back out of their savings account and spending it. And even knowing that they will run up a bunch of credit card debt, they foresee all of that future misbehavior, and they say, I better put my money somewhere where my future rascal self can't get at it. Okay? So I'll put it in an IRA, I'll put it in a 401k, I'll put it in whatever, there's an increasing number of these things. Or at least I'll put it into a mutual fund that I will feel ashamed if I withdraw it. Or it'll take a couple of days to withdraw it because my broker's not open on the weekend, or whatever it is. And then they do all kinds of disgraceful things along the way, like going to Hawaii on the spur of the moment and putting the entire thing on their credit card. But their retirement savings are safe from that misbehavior. Okay? So that's something you would expect a sophisticated beta delta discounter to do. For the sake of rigorous honesty, I should probably use examples of things I've actually done. In my case, I've never actually splurged on a short, sudden trip to Hawaii, but like Austin and New Mexico and England. So I've done this many times, and I wound up tens of thousands of dollars in debt as a result. Okay, so what do these guys do? Leibson et al. David Leibson is one of the big names in behavioral economics. He's at Harvard. This is a paper that's on B-Space. It's not assigned. It's pretty dense. It's a little heady going. Basically, what they did was they wrote down a beta delta model in the same way that we just saw a beta delta model that predicts when you'll go to the gym and when you will prefer to buy a contract and whether or not you'll actually go once you've got the contract. They took a similar kind of very simplified beta delta model, and they used it to predict mathematically how much a sophisticated beta delta discounter would save for their retirement, how much they would consume, and how much of their consumption would go onto a credit card. And so they sort of came up, using the model, they came up with a vector of, say, so savings as a function of beta and delta, and debt as a function of beta and delta, and consumption as a function of beta and delta, okay? And a function of beta and delta and a bunch of other things like their income and prices and things like that. So they came up with this vector of predictions that are functions of beta and delta. So the predictions would be different for different values of beta and delta. And then they went out and they actually found out what is the actual average savings in the United States, what is the actual average debt, and what is actual average consumption, given the actual income and prices that we see. And then they do this thing that's called minimum distance estimation, which is they ask a computer to find the values of beta and delta that make this vector as close to this vector as possible, okay, in some mathematical sense, which is to say they minimize the Euclidean norm of the error vector. So they take, if we call that s hat, d hat, and c hat, they take another vector, which is s hat minus s bar, s hat minus s bar, d hat minus d bar, and c hat minus c bar, okay? And then this is, that minus that equals that. They're trying to make that as short as possible in the sense of the Euclidean norm. If you take any kind of vector space maths like 104 or anything like that, or 110, which are fun classes, and you should take them, it doesn't matter. But basically, they're trying to make the difference between these two vectors as little as possible. And the beta and delta that make this difference as small as possible, they're going to say that's our best estimate of the true beta and delta in the population, assuming that our model is the right model. Okay? And they come up with a beta of 0.6 and a delta of 0.957 over periods of 1 year. Okay? So this number's not bad. It's on the low side, but it's not bad. This number is kind of shocking. That's low. That's small. But it turns out to be not unreasonable given the range of estimates of beta that we have from radically different types of studies. We are an impatient bunch of animals. If instead they wrote out all of these predictions of what savings and debt and consumption should be if beta was 1, in other words, in the standard model where there's only delta, what they find is that this error vector, it's just a much worse fit. These predictions are just miles off the data. Yeah. So cross-cultural studies, different tax structure, different credit card rules, maybe different culture, different psychology. There's an increasing amount of that. I don't know what's been done on this specific, like actually modeling this the way these guys did. Again, I always on these questions, send me an email, I'll try to look into it. But how about this? Okay, let me get to my next slide and see if it's of any interest. So just briefly, this kind of study is called a horse race. Okay, you have two different models. You want to see which one fits the data better. And it's like a horse race in the sense that whichever horse crosses the finish line first was faster than the other horse. It doesn't necessarily mean that either of them was particularly fast in any absolute sense. So this doesn't prove that the model's right, it just proves that it's better than the standard model. Okay, so how could we know for certain whether or not savers or borrowers are beta delta sophisticates? Well, my answer is going to be pretty consistent to this question. Conduct a field experiment. So here's a paper that's assigned. Ashraf, Carlin, and Yin, 2006. They went to the Philippines, okay? And they went to the countryside in the Philippines in particular. And they found customers of a rural bank. And they asked them a bunch of time discounting questions, which we'll see the results of later, to determine which ones were beta delta discounters. And then they randomly offered half of them a specially designed commitment savings account. You decide the rules of the commitment. I can't have this money out until this deadline, okay? And then you put the money in and you can't get it back. And then they measured the uptake of the commitment account and the total savings of people in the different groups. Okay, and here's what they found. So these are the questions that they asked. What number of X makes you indifferent between 200 pesos in 6 months versus 7 months? So this is a long-run patience question, right? So this is people getting increasingly impatient in terms of delta. And then they ask people, what X makes you indifferent between 200 pesos now and in 1 month? So this is very similar to what we've seen before. So this is short-term impatience increasing there. So people here, right, these are people who are quite patient in the long run but highly impatient in the short run. And so all of these people, we think, are sort of beta delta. These are people who have long-run patience, short-run impatience. It turns out that 28% of all of the people who were offered the commitment device took it. Right? So a demand for commitment is smoking gun evidence of sophisticated beta delta preferences. But in addition to that, within that group, they found that the people who they had identified as beta delta discounters were 15 percentage points more likely to say yes to the commitment savings account than the other people who aren't in that, who aren't showing evidence of beta delta discounting. And the treated group, including these beta delta discounters and all the others, had an 81% increase in total savings. Okay? So if that's because they're sophisticated beta delta discounters, what does that tell us about how helpful sophistication alone is in helping you to overcome the sort of irrationality of short-term impatience? This is a situation where it's not exactly public policy to make this kind of thing available, but you could imagine a public policy that makes it available. We have public policies that make this kind of account available, and it looks like that kind of public policy could be really helping people to save, which might mean really making them better off in the long run. I'll say more about that next time we meet. Sorry for going over, and thank you for your attention.